It's us who are renting out our back rooms for foreigners. It's us who are renting our tuck shops to foreigners, our garages to foreigners. It's us who are buying from the foreigners. It's us who are accommodating them. We can use the system. There's no force, there's no pressure, there's no force, there's no physical violence, there's no violence without any violence, but using the system. I think we can implement the very same thing. We can use the system. When you have a tuck shop, maybe you want to rent it out. If a foreigner wants to rent that shop, you increase the rent. If it is a foreigner, you increase it, you hyper increase it. In that way, it will work. So it's us who can solve the problems. We don't even need the government. We don't even need the government. Guys, I wanted to talk about the issue of foreigners. The issue of foreigners, I think as South Africans, we can solve it ourselves without even involving the government. It's easy. I'm going to make an example of of a shop here in my area. It is a hardware. The first owners were white people, and a lot of white people were buying there from that shop and so on. But the owner later in the years decided to sell it to Chinese. And then white people moved to another hardware that is run by a colored guy. So as a result, the Chinese ran out of business until it was sold back to another white man. You see, the white people, they understand the business. So the only way to chase you out is using the system. They use the system. Like for an example, somewhere in Cape Town, from what I've heard and from what I've read, the hyper increased rent and services, so that an average black man who's working a decent job could not afford to pay rent, and as a result, that person is forced to the areas where the rent will be cheaper. They are using the system. We can use the system, our very own system. I'm going to make another example of when I started working here. We used to go to gym in Hoërskool, one of the schools for white people. Yeah, I'll say that, or the former Model C schools, or whatever they call them. So we used to go there to gym and so on. So now the number of black people was increasing there. And what they do, they sat down and worked on the system. They came up with system, and then they chased us out using the system. We can do the same. It's us who are renting out our back rooms for foreigners. It's us who are renting our tuck shops to foreigners, our garages to foreigners. It's us who are buying from the foreigners. It's us who are accommodating them. We can use the system. I know other townships, they are using the system. There's no force, there's no pressure, there's no force, there's no physical violence, there's no violence without any violence, but using the system. I think we can implement the very same thing. We can use the system. When you have a tuck shop, maybe you want to rent it out. If a foreigner wants to rent that shop, you increase the rent. For an example, if you're charging 5,000 a month, you increase it to 8,000 maybe, or to 7,500. So to make it impossible for them to rent out, they must, if you are renting your garage, they must pay for water You include in that rent, you include water, you include tax rates and taxes, you include electricity. So you hyper increase the rent and so on. So in that way, you make it impossible for them to rent out the business and so on. And the contract has to be short, maybe. Instead of renting it, instead of signing a contract of 10 years, you can go as far as 3 years. Every 3 years they renew. And then you use the system, they pay for renewal, for contract renewal and so on and so on. But as long as you're within the law, to make it easy, to make it difficult for them to, or they rather lease the whatever. So, and then in your township, surely there are business, business forums. There are business forums. Use the business forums that in this area, the business is only strictly for black people and so on. You regulate, you come up with regulations and so on. And then if a foreigner wants to rent out the business or to lease the business, instead that foreigner must also make it make it compulsory for them to participate in foundations or wanted to help, charity, to do charity work and so on. Make it an obligation for them to participate in charities. In that way, you make it impossible for them to, in that way to work out. And then if you want to, you rent out your room for a certain amount, maybe a rent to patala 3,000. If it is a foreigner, you increase it, you hyper increase it. In that way, it will work. So it's us who can solve the problems. We don't even need the government. We don't even need the government. But because of also us civilians, or rather citizens, we are as corrupt as the government. Let us be honest, we are as corrupt as the government. Right now, most of your parents are the ones that rented out, that registered the spaza shops for these foreigners and so on. And you see to rent out, and then it's you, the very same new person, the very same South African who rent out their IDs, who gets married to these foreigners, and so you make it easy for them to assimilate and to penetrate the society and so on. Make it easy for them because of you are actively involved in these things that they are doing. They are not doing alone. Each and every business, each and every illegal thing that is done by a foreigner, a South African is involved there. Is taking part. There's a South African that is taking part in there. So it's easy to solve the issue of the issue of foreigners without even involving violence and so on. I think there are no rules or there are no laws that forces you as the landlord to rent out your room to a foreigner and so on. You just increase the rent and also you use the system to control. In that way, you make it difficult for them to run a business in your country without even breaking any law. Without even breaking any law. The white people are using the systems. To get rid of us, they are using the systems. People say, no, yes, I understand, sir, but the law doesn't allow me to help you. The rules are rules and so on. They stick to the rules. But you, dololo. Dango.